Recuerda mi nombre, Leo Messi.
They said he was too small, too shy, too fragile to survive in professional soccer. He didn't draw attention, didn't talk much, and no one saw him as the next big star. But the moment Lionel Messi stepped onto the field, everything changed. From being rejected by doctors to tearing apart multi-million-dollar teams, his path wasn't unlikely, it was almost impossible. So how did this quiet kid from Rosario become the greatest of all time? To understand it, we have to go back to the beginning, to the place where it all started. The doctors were clear. He won't be able to grow like other children. He'll never be able to play professional soccer. He was just 10 years old, a kid from Rosario with a heart full of fire. His grandmother, Celia, took him to every practice, every game. She was his #1 fan. When she passed away, something in Leo changed forever. "Every goal I score is for her," he once said. That's why, every time he looks up at the sky, he doesn't celebrate, he gives thanks. In the heart of Rosario, Argentina, there was a boy who always had a ball at his feet. His name was Lionel Andres Messi Cucitini. He didn't need toys, he didn't need consoles. Just a ball and a small patch of dirt. At 5 years old, his grandmother Celia took him for the first time to train at Club Grandoli, a neighborhood club with worn-out jerseys and dirt fields. The coach didn't want to let him play, he was too small, he looked like a 3-year-old, but his grandmother insisted. "Please put him in. If you don't try him, you'll never know what he can do." He stepped onto the field, shy, wearing a jersey that was way too big for him, and scored a goal just minutes later. The silence was broken. Everyone stood there, staring at that little boy who had just worked magic. That day, Messi didn't just play his first match, he discovered his destiny. His grandmother became his biggest fan. She went with him to every training session, applauded louder than anyone else, and cheered him on as if he were already a professional player. She was the one who believed in him before everyone else. And years later, when he would point to the sky after every goal, it wouldn't be an empty gesture, it would be his way of saying, "This is for you, Grandma." And you, do you think Messi is the greatest player in history? Leave a comment, give us a like, and subscribe to Barça Cracks. At 7 years old, his talent was already impossible to ignore. He was signed by Newell's Old Boys, the same club where Maradona had played. He was tiny, almost fragile, but when he had the ball, he transformed. He had a different kind of speed, a way of moving that confused everyone. Defenders saw him coming and still couldn't stop him. In youth tournaments, he scored more than 100 goals per season. Parents from opposing teams complained. Some coaches even said, "If Messi plays, we're not stepping onto the field." And that's how his nickname was born, La Pulga the Flea, because even though he was small, no one could squash him. He was fast, restless, untouchable. In every play, in every pass, there was something more than talent. There was a kid who played for love, not for fame. A kid who dreamed big, even when everyone told him he was too small to dream. That was the beginning of a story that would change soccer forever. At 10 years old, just as the world was beginning to notice his talent, life played its toughest match against him. Messi was different, yes, but not only because of his magic with the ball. While his friends kept growing, he stayed the same. Doctors examined him and delivered a diagnosis that froze his entire family. Lionel has a growth hormone deficiency. It was a medical phrase, but behind those words hid a sentence. Without treatment, he wouldn't be able to grow like the others, nor continue competing in soccer. The treatment was expensive, $1,500 a month, an impossible amount for a working-class family from Rosario. His parents did everything they could. They sold what they had, asked for help, searched for doctors, scholarships, promises. But the money wasn't enough. At night, Messi kept training as if nothing had happened, unaware that his future was hanging by a thread. For many, that would have been the end. But for him, it was only the beginning of a new battle. His father, Jorge Messi, refused to give up. He knew his son had something unique, something that couldn't be extinguished by a lack of money. So he began recording homemade videos of Leo playing, dribbling past kids twice his size, scoring impossible goals. doing things no child his age could do. He sent those videos to clubs in Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil. No one responded. Until one, thousands of miles away, picked up the phone. A Barcelona scout, Carlos Rexach, watched the footage. He couldn't believe it. A small, fragile-looking boy, performing magic with the ball. "Sign him immediately," he said. "This kid is different." And just like that, from a small house in Rosario, with a worn-out ball and a heart full of hope, began the journey that would change the history of soccer forever. However, there was a problem. Messi was only 13 years old, and his family lived on the other side of the world. The club hesitated. Some executives thought it was risky to bring in a foreign child and also cover the cost of his medical treatment. But Rexach insisted. "If we don't sign him today, someone else will take him tomorrow." So, one day in September of the year 2000, at a small table at the Pompeia Tennis Club, Rexach, Leo's father, and two witnesses met. There were no official documents, no lawyers, no prepared contracts, just a paper napkin. And on it, Rexach wrote in his own handwriting, "On behalf of Barcelona and despite the circumstances, I commit to signing Lionel Messi." That napkin, fragile, simple, almost ridiculous, would become one of the most legendary documents in the history of sports. A few days later, Lionel and his father left Argentina. They boarded a plane with one suitcase, a ball, and a dream. They arrived in Barcelona, a massive, unfamiliar city with a different accent, a different climate, a different life. Messi barely spoke. He observed, listened, and trained. He was a child among giants, but with a determination no adult could match. At La Masia, his new home, he began a quiet but unstoppable routine. Train, study, inject his growth hormone every night, and repeat it all the next day. He struggled to make friends. Some saw him as the quiet kid from Argentina. Others simply called him the mute. But on the field, no one could stop him. His talent was so obvious that his coaches said, "We don't need to understand him. Just let him play." Barcelona had taken a gamble on an unknown child with a napkin, and without knowing it, had signed a pact with history. Coach Frank Rijkaard included him in first-team training sessions. Messi didn't hesitate for a second. He played with the same calm he had in Rosario, but now surrounded by idols. And there was one in particular who took him under his wing like an older brother, Ronaldinho. Ronnie watched him in training and smiled. He told him, "Relax, kid, your moment will come." And it came. At 17 years old, Lionel Messi officially made his debut with Barcelona. He stepped onto the field wearing the number 30 jersey, his heart racing. In his first match, minutes later, he received a magical pass from Ronaldinho, and the ball ended up in the back of the net. Messi lifted his head, smiled, and celebrated wildly alongside Ronaldinho, who carried him on his back. An official debut and a stunning goal for the history books. The fans celebrated a goal, but those inside the club knew they had witnessed something far greater. The birth of Barcelona's new heartbeat. From that moment on, no one ever looked at Messi as just a kid from La Masia again. He was, officially, the future of soccer. And this is where the story begins of how a teenager would start tearing down Europe's multi-millionaire giants. Without experience, without fame, with nothing but football. On February 22, 2006, Europe witnessed the birth of something it still couldn't fully understand. Barcelona arrived at the Champions League round of 16 as an unstoppable team. Ronaldinho was the king of world football, and a teenager from Rosario, just 18 years old, was beginning to write his own legend. His name, Lionel Messi. His mission, to face the champions of England. His stage, Stamford Bridge. On the other side of the field stood Jose Mourinho's Chelsea, a tactical monster, powerful, physical, terrifying. Defenders who weighed twice as much as him, men against a boy. But that boy wasn't afraid. He had football. Every time he touched the ball, the stadium held its breath. electric dribbles, impossible 1-2s with Ronaldinho, and a magical connection that felt like it came from another planet. Messi played as if he didn't understand the difference between dreaming and playing. The English defense tried to stop him with force, but no tactic could contain his talent. Until the brutal tackle from Asier del Horno arrived. A criminal foul. A blow that didn't just take him out of the match, it pushed him away from glory. Injured, Messi couldn't play the second leg or the final in Paris, where Barça lifted the trophy. It was a brilliant and cruel debut. England welcomed him with kicks, not applause. But what they didn't know was that blow wouldn't stop him, it was forging him. 1 year later, fate once again put Messi face to face with Chelsea. But he was no longer the shy teenager. He was an awakened beast. With more confidence, more speed, more fire. In London, he once again dribbled past giants who doubled him in strength. At the Camp Nou, Ashley Cole, John Terry, and Carvalho became his victims. He ran, took defenders on, broke lines, and created chaos with every left-footed touch. The English media called him the new Argentine nightmare. And they were right. England had seen a child cry. Now it was witnessing the birth of a legend. Messi no longer asked for permission. Messi imposed his law. With every touch, every turn, every impossible pass, Messi dismantled a multi-millionaire European giant, Chelsea. And he did it with the calm of someone who knew the world already belonged to him. The following year, Barcelona returned to the round of 16 as champions of Europe. The opponent, Liverpool. A team of steel, led by Rafa Benitez, with Steven Gerrard, Carragher, and Xabi Alonso. An English bloc built on discipline, grit, and muscle, and a multi-million-dollar squad. But on the other side stood a 19-year-old Messi with his soul on fire and the ball glued to his foot. The Camp Nou was expecting another magical night. Messi, fearless, went up against Riza, against Agger, against anyone who crossed his path. His body was still fragile, but his football was invincible. He played as if time didn't exist. Every movement was a provocation, every dribble a challenge to logic. But English football doesn't surrender easily. Defensive mistakes doomed Barça, a 1-2 loss in the first leg. A hard blow, but Messi didn't hang his head. He knew the war was still on. At Anfield, the cradle of intensity, 45,000 red souls were waiting for him. An inferno. And in the middle of the English roar, a young Argentine lifted his head. Every time he touched the ball, the stadium froze. Defenders multiplied, but he found paths where none existed. Impossible turns, dribbles in spaces barely inches wide, feints that left the Englishman frozen. Barça won 0-1, with a goal from Gudjohnsen. The aggregate score ended 2-2, and by the cruel away goals rule, the champion was eliminated. But that night would not be remembered for the result. It would be remembered because Anfield looked at him with respect. Because that 19-year-old had made the champions of Europe bow to his talent. They didn't beat him. They beat Barça. Messi left the field without a trophy, but with something far more powerful: England's admiration. A year earlier, they had knocked him down. Now they admired him. From tears to reverence. From a promise to a threat. He had challenged England. He had humiliated the most powerful and wealthiest teams on the continent. Chelsea, Liverpool, everyone fell at the feet of a teenager who knew no fear, who spoke only the language of football. The English giants hit him hard, and he answered with magic. They pushed him to the ground, and he got back up hungrier than ever. Europe was beginning to understand. You couldn't buy what Messi had. Because while the richest clubs in the world spent millions on muscle, contracts, and stars, in Barcelona a boy was growing who needed only a ball and an opportunity. And just when everyone thought they had already seen it all, destiny had his greatest test prepared. The perfect rival. The team of the chosen, of the multi-millionaires, of media gods. Real Madrid's Galacticos. A clash of worlds. Power versus talent. Money versus the purity of football. Marketing idols versus a boy who was just beginning to write his story. And that was when football began to tremble. March 10, 2007. Camp Nou, Barcelona. More than 90,000 people packed the stadium. A constant roar. This didn't feel like just another match. It was a war between empires. On one side, the mighty Real Madrid, an army of legends: Beckham, Sergio Ramos, Raúl, Van Nistelrooy, Casillas, Zidane. Proven men, global idols, icons of world football. On the other side, a Barcelona in crisis. Rijkaard under pressure, Ronaldinho carrying knocks, and a team on the edge of collapse. Among them, a skinny kid, with a shy look and the number 19 on his back. Lionel Messi. The whistle blew and chaos began. Real Madrid struck first. Van Nistelrooy made it 0-1. The Camp Nou fell silent, but only for a few seconds. In the 11th minute, Ronaldinho combined with Eto'o, and the number 9 slipped a pass through. Messi received it, controlled, set himself up on his left foot, and fired. Goal. The stadium exploded. The kid everyone called the Mute had just awakened the Catalan giant. But Madrid never forgives. Van Nistelrooy scored again. Messi, without hesitation, answered back. In the 28th minute, a dangerous play from Eto'o and Ronaldinho in the box, a shot from the Brazilian, a save by Casillas, and the perfect rebound fell to Messi. A thunderous strike. A screamer. 2-2. He celebrated with fury, with rage, and a serious, determined stare. The message was clear. I'm here, and I'm not leaving. The match turned into a battle. Ramos shoved, Guti provoked, Puyol barked orders. Time was running out, and Real Madrid seemed to be in control. 73rd minute, a header from Ramos. Goal. Barcelona, once again, on the edge of the abyss. The clock hit 90 minutes. The cameras focused on Rijkaard's bench. Some fans were already heading for the exits. And then, destiny took the shape of a left foot from Rosario. Ronaldinho received the ball at the edge of the box, looked up, and slipped an impossible pass. Messi controlled it. In front of him, two walls, Ramos and Cannavaro, the reigning Ballon d'Or. He left them behind with a move almost invisible and fired with his left foot. The ball slipped past goalkeeper Casillas and slammed into the net. Hat-trick. 3-3. For a second, the stadium fell silent. And then, an explosion of screams, tears, and disbelief. Messi erupted. He shouted, ran, threw himself toward the sky with his arms wide open. The stadium shook. Cameras chased him, but he was already in another dimension. He had just made history. At only 19 years old, he had shattered the gods of world football, and he knew it. That night, the headlines were clear. Messi brings Real Madrid to their knees. A child destroys the Galacticos. A legend is born. Because that day, football changed hands. It no longer belonged to Beckham's, Ronaldo's, or Raúl's. It belonged to a quiet kid from Rosario who, with his left foot, had written the first chapter of his eternity. 2008 brought a showdown the entire world had been waiting for. On one side, the English Empire at its absolute peak, Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, a perfect machine. Cristiano Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez, Scholes, Giggs, an orchestra tuned by millions, built to conquer Europe. And facing them, a Barcelona in transition. A wounded, inconsistent team, surviving in the shadows of its glorious past. But in the middle of that chaos, there was a light beginning to shine brighter than ever. Lionel Messi, wearing number 19. Just 20 years old, still a teenager. Thin, quiet, eyes fixed on the ball and on Cristiano Ronaldo. The Portuguese star, at the time, believed he was the best in the world. His goals, his physique, his media aura placed him at the top. But that night, at the Camp Nou, Messi showed him that greatness isn't measured in muscles or headlines, but in football. The semi-final began with a roar. Just minutes in, Cristiano had the chance to silence the stadium. A penalty for United. But pressure consumed him. His shot went wide. Fate seemed to choose a different protagonist. From that moment on, Messi took control of the match. Every touch was a threat. Every change of pace, a sentence. Down the right flank, he turned Patrice Evra and Scholes into shadows. He pushed them back, dismantled them with impossible dribbles, with feints no one else on the planet could execute. United, England's unstoppable machine, dropped back like a small team. Messi forced them to defend. He pinned them in their own half. And he did it without shouting, without provocation, only with pure football. The Camp Nou roared with every burst from the number 10. The score stayed 0-0, but the result was deceptive. Because that night, everyone understood that the kid from Rosario could look Cristiano in the eye and not look away. The second leg at Old Trafford was a war. The theatre of dreams turned into a nightmare. The chants, the smoke, the pressure. United needed blood, and Paul Scholes, with a thunderbolt from outside the box, scored the only goal of the tie. But Messi didn't give up. He never stopped running, trying, fighting for every ball as if the world depended on it. Van der Sar played the hero, Ferdinand and Vidic resisted with their souls, and United survived, barely. When the referee blew the final whistle, the English celebrated reaching the final. Cristiano smiled, Ferguson raised his arms. But in the stands, and especially in the eyes of those who truly understood football, there was another feeling. United had won the match, but Messi had won the respect of the world. That semi-final was not a defeat. It was a declaration of power. The kid from Rosario had outplayed with football the richest and most disciplined team in England. Without arrogance, without the press, without words, only with his left foot. That night, something bigger than a result was born. A rivalry was born. Messi and Cristiano. Two paths, two philosophies, two opposite worlds that from then on would face each other for a decade. And while one celebrated reaching a European final, the other lifted his spirit. Because even though the scoreboard said United were the finalists, everyone knew the future of football had a name and a last name: Lionel Messi. When Ronaldinho left, Messi inherited the number 10. But in his hands, it wasn't just a number. It was a symbol. Every kid wanted it. Every rival feared it. And every stadium surrendered to his magic. 8 Ballon d'Ors, a World Cup, more than 850 goals, and 400 assists. Records only a genius could write. From Rosario to the world, from a small boy with a dream to an eternal legend. Messi doesn't play soccer. Messi is soccer. A teenager who destroyed the most powerful and wealthiest giants of Europe, using nothing but his left foot, his talent, and his silence. If you also grew up watching his magic, leave a like on this video, subscribe to Barça Cracks, and turn on the notification bell to keep reliving the stories of those who turned football into a work of art.